Good morning. We are here to call on Governor Pritzker and the Democratic majority not to raise taxes on Illinois families this veto session. The governor's own budget office is expecting a $267 million deficit just 3 months into this fiscal budget, proving what we've been saying all along, that this budget was not balanced when it was passed, even with their tax increases. We're hearing a lot of rhetoric blaming the federal administration for Illinois' budget woes. But you all know this isn't a new problem. When President Biden was in the White House, Governor Pritzker's own 5-year budget projection showed a budget deficit for each of the next 5 budget years of $4.6 billion each year. Knowing that this deficit was looming, last year, when they tried to scare state agencies with a letter calling for cuts, they still increased state spending by over $2 billion, with $1 billion of tax increases and one-time budget gimmicks. In fact, Governor Pritzker has increased state spending by 40% since he first took office. And this is despite the fact that Illinois' economic growth significantly lags national economic growth. Every time Democrats run into a cash problem, they make matters worse by reaching further into the pockets of Illinois families who can't afford it. One short-sighted cash grab we are expecting the Democratic majority to use this veto session is decoupling from some of the newly passed federal tax benefits so they can squeeze a few more dollars out of our already struggling Illinois businesses. Like many states, in Illinois, federal tax savings are passed on automatically to our taxpayers unless we pass legislation to proactively opt out. This process, called decoupling, not only prevents taxpayers from what would be automatic savings, but it also makes tax filing more complicated for Illinoisans, leading to audit issues. The Democrats' plan is to increase taxes on the economic engines of our state, while at the same time making taxes more complicated for Illinoisans. Some of the major savings for Illinois businesses that could be on the chopping block include a new deduction for manufacturers to build manufacturing facilities here in Illinois, a research and development cost recovery incentives allowing Illinois businesses to develop new and innovative products and technologies, and an expansion of small business deductions to help small businesses grow right here in Illinois. I just want to emphasize what the availability of these benefits mean to a business when it's deciding where to build its next plant or its next factory. What state, what community, what workforce to invest in. If the Democratic majority decides to actively prevent these benefits, our neighboring states will offer them. And the jobs, the salaries, and the tax revenue is going to go elsewhere rather than right here. Decoupling is bad for our state economy and our business climate, leaving the people of this state to take another financial hit they cannot afford. This is simple. If Governor Pritzker and his Democratic allies again raise costs on businesses, the people of Illinois will be hit with higher costs, less job opportunities, and eventually lower pay. As we know, these budget deficits have been looming for years, and yet the governor and his Democratic allies continue to spend with no plan. They think they can distract from their recklessness by blaming the federal government. But it is the job of the state legislature to balance a budget no matter who is president. The governor recently said that his preferred method of closing a budget deficit is to grow the state's economy. On this point, I agree with the governor. And that's why I introduced a resolution calling on my colleagues not to decouple from these helpful business incentives. Illinoisans are going to hear a lot of finger pointing during this veto session. But there is no one that can raise your taxes other than a Democratic majority in Illinois, and that's exactly what they're planning to do this week. Illinoisans should be aware that not only will their state taxes increase, but the Democratic majority's attempts to decouple from federal tax cuts will leave Illinois less competitive with neighboring states on attracting jobs and economic investment. If the Democrats are serious about improving Illinois' economic growth, they will start with making the difficult and sometimes unpopular decisions with constraining state spending, reducing taxes, and improving Illinois' economic environment for all Illinoisans. And they should start right here this very week. And with that, I would like to turn this over to the Senate Republican Deputy Leader, Sue Rezin.
Thank you, Leader Curran. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Illinois Senate Republican Deputy Leader Sue Rezin, and I'm proud to stand along Leader Curran here as we speak out against major proposals being discussed in the General Assembly that would make life harder for both families and businesses. At a time when working Illinoisans are already paying more for everything from utilities to groceries to property taxes, the last thing we need is another round of bad policies that drive up costs and drive out jobs. Let's start with energy. The so-called energy omnibus bill being pushed by the governor's administration is not an energy plan. This bill was written by special interest groups and rubber stamped by the governor's administration, leaving Illinois families to pay the price. It lifts the caps that protect consumers, hands sweeping new powers to unelected regulators, and doubles down on unreliable energy sources that simply cannot sustain our state's power needs. This proposal will lead to higher electric bills, less reliability, and fewer options for families and manufacturers alike. Even though the bill finally allows new nuclear construction, something that I have fought for many years, that small step forward is completely overshadowed by billions of dollars in new costs and mandates that will make our energy grid weaker, not stronger. Illinois could be leading the Midwest in affordable, reliable, and carbon-free power, but instead this proposal puts politics over progress and makes our state less competitive for investment and growth. The same can be said for the Chicago transit bailout proposal. Democrats are floating billions in new taxes and fees to bail out a system that's been mismanaged for decades, a system that most Illinoisans outside of Chicago will never use. Families across my district are already paying record taxes for energy and property taxes. Now they're being told that they should pay even more for a $1.5 billion tax package that includes a new delivery tax on nearly every package that's delivered at your home, service taxes that would raise the cost of everyday needs like haircuts, car repairs, and childcare, rideshare and toll surcharges that make it more expensive just to get to work. These are not revenue solutions. These are tax hikes on the middle class. And while the supporters of these new taxes claim that this is about saving public transit, what it's really doing is asking downstate and suburban taxpayers to subsidize a failed system. Leader Curran and I are both committed to putting Illinois families first. What we need are policies that reduce cost, strengthen reliability, expand opportunity, and respect local control, not policies that load up families with new taxes, weaken our infrastructure, and make Illinois less competitive. So today we say, no more. Illinois deserves better. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to open it up for any questions.
How are the Republicans going to effectively campaign on these things?
On pocketbook issues, taxes,
You don't want the decoupling, you don't want the energy bill, you don't want the transit.
we don't want to increase more cost, more burden on Illinois families and Illinois businesses. It is time for Illinois to live within its means. We need to spur greater economic growth in this state. We are a bottom 5 state in economic growth since Governor Pritzker has taken office. And we are top 5 in the country in highest unemployment rate. These policies are not leading to growing Illinois' economy. The growth in the economy would solve a lot of these problems.
How are these going to translate into Republican wins, though? How are these going to translate into Republican wins in March, in November?
These are pocketbook issues. This is what I discuss at the kitchen table. This is what I discuss with my family, my friends, my coworkers. People are going to vote with their pocketbook. And right now, the governor and the Democratic majority want to reach further into Illinois families' pockets and take more. And that is going to lead to wins.
Leader Curran, obviously this veto session, there's been a lot of buzz around the issues that you just talked about taxes, transit, I know energy, obviously immigration enforcement has also come to the forefront for Democrats. They're gonna have a press conference today to talk about stories of people of all backgrounds and citizenship statuses who have been, their words, illegally brutalized and detained. Members will also discuss forthcoming legislative efforts to protect Illinoisans from hostile law enforcement tactics in hospitals, courthouses, and other locations where all people should feel safe. What's the Senate Republicans' position on all of this?
This is all a result of the lack of cooperation. So two things can be true at the same time. We can agree that this is not the best way to enforce the national immigration laws, but at the same time, the governor's policies refusing to allow cooperation amongst law enforcement to remove the most dangerous criminals from Illinois is also a bad approach. Democracy works best when everyone works together. All levels of government work together. That's not happening here in the state of Illinois, and we're seeing the result of that.
The two issues you guys brought up about possible increased costs on taxpayers, the transit fiscal cliff and the energy costs. What's your proposal to reverse those things? Can you distill those down?
Sure.
How do you address transit, for instance?
Yep, happy to.
Without increasing taxes or fees?
Well, first of all, if you look for the past 7 years, we've added $1.3 billion from the capital bill that was supposed to go to roads and bridges in our districts, but instead went for operating expenses for the CTA. So clearly, they're operating at a deficit, and they haven't changed their business model and why they're in a deficit. On top of that, they are asking for all of these new taxes throughout the entire state. We don't use the system. Why should downstate and central Illinois pay a new fee on every package delivered at our house? Many people rely on the ability to receive their goods at their house because they don't have access to transportation. So they're having packages delivered, whether it's baby diapers or formula, delivered at their house. So this new tax is only starting, I don't know what it is, at $1 or $1.50, but the door's open, right? It's a new tax, and every year when we need more money for the CTA in Chicago, all they have to do is raise that tax. Now, in regards to energy, energy has been going up and increasing for several years. In MISO, their energy bills have gone up. If you're ratepayer, your bills have gone up 200%. And if you're in PJM, your rates have gone up 50%. Now, I watched the previous press conference. They blamed it on several things. I will tell you why your prices are going up. Because capacity is being forced offline. Natural gas plants in the state are being forced offline. Natural gas is the cheapest way to provide capacity, which is what we need because of the new economy, the AI economy that you hear about. We all agree that we need more power. I agree with my colleagues that just spoke. Many states are looking at how to solve this problem. The difference is, in all of the other states that they mentioned, they're building out natural gas combined cycle plants to be able to power their data centers. They're not doubling down on expensive renewable power, such as wind and solar, and now battery, and transmission lines built in to move the power from another state, from wind and solar, that are paid by ratepayers. There is a reason that this bill lifts the caps on rates, so please pay attention. These rates, your utility bills, are going to go through the roof, and I'll go through exactly why I feel what this bill does. First of all, battery storage paid for by the ratepayers. Originally, they said the battery build out $14 billion. Might be a couple $1 billion less. It's still $1 billion that ratepayers have to pay for. They may have to pay for them in 2030. They still have to pay for it on ratepayers, on your bill. The social cost of carbon, $200 a ton. That's the most expensive program in the entire country for the cost of carbon. Withdrawal from the PJM. They say the PJM is causing these rates to go up. The PJM is, if you leave the PJM, what they didn't tell you is there are stranded costs that you as a state have to pay, and that those stranded costs are billions of dollars that the state of Illinois will have to pay, ratepayers will have to pay, because we've already committed to projects. So billions of dollars if you withdraw from the PJM. And then on top of it, we're giving all decision-making power to the ICC, 5 unelected officials. They're deciding what your energy policy, what your energy portfolio for the state looks like. Their goal, their mission, their vision, call it what you want, is renewable energy. Wind, solar, battery. You heard it in the last press conference. They didn't even mention nuclear, all right? These 5 officials will get to choose what your energy portfolio going forward looks like in the state of Illinois. Renewables. No other state's looking at renewables. Texas, they're looking at, they have some battery, they're looking at natural gas. Indiana, they're looking at natural gas. If they're lucky enough to have nuclear, they'll bring nuclear back online if it's gone offline, or build out their nuclear or put some SMRs there. But they're not doubling down their entire energy portfolio on wind, solar, and transmission. Transmission line, 2 transmission lines we talked about that people have been in my office talking about, moving power from solar from other states to our state or through our state. Actually, at the time, it was through our state, are financed by ratepayers. Why is that? Because that's the best gig in the world. They get to finance projects that are paid for by ratepayers. They, of course, can go out and bond that kind of money. We all want that kind of financing, but we don't get it. Lastly, so when the tax credits federally go away, these companies still want to build out their wind and solar. So how do they pass on the cost of the lost credits that they're no longer receiving at the federal level? Ratepayers. That's what's happening. They will have the ability to pass that cost on to ratepayers in the state of Illinois. There is a reason that they lifted the caps in this bill that were previously put in CEJA, because they know the cost of power is going up. But they're not going to tell you that yet. Why? Because there was a poll in 2024 by the AP out of University of Chicago, NORC, AP out of University of Chicago, said that the majority of people support clean energy, renewable power. I would say, 53% support renewable power. But then when you ask the follow-up question, will you pay $1 more, $1 for renewable power, 55% said no. Okay? So that's what's happening here. You're hearing all of these reports by the IPA, by the way, governor's people, stating with all of these wild assumptions, saying that we're going to save money. Does anyone, any ratepayer believe we're going to save money on energy, especially after what we've seen in the past several years? And with all of these different additions that are being added on the backs of ratepayers, and no caps to protect ratepayers. Nobody's here protecting ratepayers. Now, we heard from CUB. They were the first one to speak in their last press conference, but what they didn't tell you is CUB gets something in this bill. So, I mean, they have a financial incentive, in my opinion, to stand up here and say, this bill's great, it's going to save you money. But when we asked CUB during our committee hearings, well, you said last time we passed an energy bill, it would only cost a couple bucks to a ratepayer. But it ended up costing 200% more in MISO and 50% more in PJM. And their answer was, well, you know, we didn't, and there's no accountability. Everybody forgets about it, and then they get to, on the back end, when they're people who are, you know, the customers are saying what's going on, then they also get to say, oh, we're going to stand up against, you know, the big bad utilities. So it's kind of a cycle down here, and it's frustrating for me. I mean, I agree with the previous Leader Cunningham. Every state is in the same situation where we have to figure out how we can provide capacity power. Wind is 20% of the time. Solar, 8% of the time. Batteries, net 2 hours, maybe 4 hours. That's not capacity power. I'm fine with renewables, but the kind of load that we need for this new economy is big capacity, whether it's nuclear and natural gas. And the fact that we have 6 nuclear power plants in this state, and we have the ability, just lift the moratorium. Allow them to build on the back end to the nukes. Transmission lines are there, workforce is there, all of the above. That we can't do that. I mean, my bill's in here, but the language is not from my bill. And because of the ambiguity in the language that's put in here, we even question whether you can build, it does lift the moratorium on nuclear. We don't know. They could have easily added my language, they didn't. So we have a lot of problems. I look at this bill, energy bills, in my opinion, will go up, and other people that I have read and data and information we've received, your energy bills are going up 10x. 10x. Governor may be gone at that time. You know, what's going to happen is everybody's going to go to the ICC and complain that their bills are high like they do for the water bills. You know what the ICC says? Talk to your legislator. They passed the bill. So there's no accountability in this game down here. We need more accountability for ratepayers. We need low capacity. It's nuclear and it's natural gas. It's very easy. And then stay out of the way. This economy will work. But when we see 800-page bills like this, that says wind and solar, we're going to double down on wind and solar and build out battery on the backs of ratepayers. What are we doing? No other state in the country is doing this. Thank you.
Leader Kern,
I'm sorry, Leader.
you represent a district where people do use public transportation. Would it be fair to ask people in the suburbs and the city to pay more in taxes to fund the system?
Look, we should be looking at reform first. It does not make logical sense to, at the same time, you're going to put a bunch of reforms in place and put a new group of people in charge to also, you don't know exactly what you need. We know the cliff keeps getting pushed out. We know the amount keeps coming down. Let's put the new people in first. Let's reform the structures. Let them get their arms around it, and then let's talk about what is needed.
You talked about the governor last week saying that he wants to grow the economy. That's his best way of getting more tax revenue. If you were to sit down with him this week, are there plans for you guys to sit down with him, number one? And if you do, what do you tell him?
Well, what I would tell them is, let's take a look at the most recent credit rating upgrade, which, Illinois moved from 50th in the country in credit rating to 50th. We're still the bottom, but the agencies highlighted we're a low growth state, and it's the impediments and the barriers to growth in Illinois. Investment, outside investment in this state is what is holding us back. Taxing businesses, making it more expensive to operate in Illinois is not good policy. It has not worked. So we have got to cut taxes for businesses. We've got to spur economic growth in this state, more job opportunities for all. That's what's going to be good for Illinois families. And long term, that's what's going to be good for Illinois' budget. So that would be the conversation I would have with the company.
Senator Resin, to follow up on Ben's question to Leader Curran about transit, you know, one of the things that was talked about, I heard Senator Villalobos say this a month, you know, before veto session in a town hall, that, you know, you got like 50, I think it's something like more than 50 transit agencies in 95 downstate counties. And $200 million could potentially go to these 50 transit agencies, presumably agencies that may cover your district, because you're out of the Chicago area. So absent that, so not absent that, but like because of that, I mean, it's not like downstate would be excluded from whatever reforms and financing the Democrats want in this transit bill. So, I mean, do you look at that as a good thing, or what do you think about that at all?
Well, currently, they're called DOPE funds, downstate funds for transportation. We have many transportations throughout my district that use DOPE funds. You know, here's the deal. This bill is being driven by Chicago. Its governance will be in Chicago. So we get breadcrumbs. We get nothing. They're going to throttle, you know, some, maybe instead of getting 2 million, we may get 2,100,000 or whatever. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's certainly not enough to move the needle on opening the door for all of these new taxes. As the leader said, new taxes in this state sends a wrong message. Our colleagues across the aisle call it revenue. We call it taxes on hardworking middle-class families.
Thanks, everybody. We're at time. Appreciate it.